And what makes our movement's success this last year even more powerful, more meaningful, and more lasting is that it wasn't just the LGBT community. It wasn't just LGBT people who worked and celebrated these wins. In fact, some of the very first calls and emails I got when the president came out for marriage last spring, and when marriage equality won in state after state after state after state, those calls were from leaders of civil rights, labor, women's, and other non-LGBT organizations. If there is one message we can take away from election night 2012, it is that we are not alone. We are not alone as a movement, we are not alone as a people, and we need to now make sure that no one else is alone either. I'm thinking about so many people here in the South and elsewhere that still face isolation. The activists fighting and living under Georgia's reprehensible immigration law. I'm thinking about the young women fighting for reproductive rights and justice in rural, often unwelcoming areas. And those still living in grinding, debilitating poverty, the kind of poverty we don't even want to acknowledge still exists in our country, because the very fact that it still does is a raw reminder that our economy and our public policy still play favorites. For 40 years, the task force has been at the forefront of our movement's work for freedom, justice, liberation, and equality. And for 25 years, we've been meeting here at Creating Change to share strategies, gain skills, and plan the future. 40 years doesn't seem so long today, now that there's some wind at our back, the momentum of change growing and a little spring in our step. But we can never forget what it took us to get to this day. The struggles, the sacrifices, the loss and the pain we have been through as a movement. Those strong shoulders and brave hearts that held us up and moved us forward. Some are here today to enjoy the fruits of our labor, but many are not because of HIV and AIDS and cancer, or the sheer weight of what oppression does to a person. To honor them, we must not rest. We must not slow down. We must not stop reaching, and we must never forget where we came from. And so today, as the task force celebrates its 40th anniversary, we must look both backward and forward. Like other social justice movements before us, we have been fortunate to have dynamic, determined, smart, and passionate leaders willing to step forward to expose our nation's disturbing and painful gaps in freedom, and then call on us to dig for our moral compass and push our country forward. Leaders like Del Martin and Phyllis Lyon, who still carries on despite Del's passing. Carmen Milk, Frank Kameny, Barrett Rustin, Vera Martin, Olga Villas, and Alexis Rivera. And despite all their accomplishments, I suspect not one of them would claim to have made them alone. In communities across the country, they came together with lovers, with friends, with compatriots in the struggle for human rights. They created family, chosen family. And while the LGBT community certainly didn't invent the idea of chosen family, I believe through necessity and through our struggle to survive and to love, we may have perfected it. I've been in this movement a long time, and we've changed everything from the words we use to describe our love for each other to changing the words we use in our marriage campaigns. We've learned over time, and through more than a few losses, what truly touches people's emotions and what changes their votes. That a vote is a personal thing, that it's as much a thing of the heart as it is of the mind. And as we've worked to gain recognition of our relationships, we've learned that talking about rights and privileges and obligations, all of those parts of marriage don't really touch people's hearts in the same way as talking about love and commitment. And so today, I challenge us to take to heart the words family, love, and commitment. But let's not restrict or limit them to one view of what our families are supposed to look like. Let family and love and commitment expand our lives, not restrain them. After all, from the very first moments of our modern LGBT movement, we have given shape to the word family, not the other way around. And we, out of our experience, have created beautiful, expansive, chosen families. As the saying goes, an army of lovers, or in the case of our movement, an army of ex-lovers, often makes up our families. Not speaking for myself, just other people. Our movement must be one that embraces the many, many ways we create and choose family. We want family that understands and has our back, that picks us up when we need it, that pushes us further when we tire. A family that walks in the door when everyone else has walked out. And that's how I like to think of our movement and our task force family at 40 years. Sure, it can seem a bit cliche to talk about the task force as a family, organizations as families. But to those who might think it's a cliche, all I have to say is, you don't know the task force. For 40 years, the task force has been an incubator, helping to create scores of organizations across the country. Through our campaigns, initiatives, and through late-night meetings here at Creating Change, activists just like you, and in fact many of you, have created groups that have picked up the fight for people with HIV and AIDS, for anti-violence programs, youth activism, the original campaigns to work against the so-called Defense of Marriage Act and Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and strengthened our movement's work against racism and for economic justice. It's why, as we celebrate 40 years of the task force, it's really a celebration of our movement's family, a celebration of you and your work. And there's one more group here today I want to welcome to our family. Thanks to the Los Angeles LGBT Center, there's a group of 26 HIV/AIDS and LGBT activists here today from China and Taiwan. I was fortunate to spend time with them yesterday. We went through a lot of pizzas, and I have to tell you, I am so